Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the broadcast. This is Restricted Republic. My name is Justice Knight, today filling in for Lisa Haven. Can't thank you enough for allowing me to be here on this Independence Day weekend. It should always be about American independence, shouldn't it be? But unfortunately, in this case, it is something about the degradation of America's independence that just hit news headline, but they didn't cover the story. They didn't cover the whole story. A July 4th alert. China, on domestic soil, just made a monumental wartime maneuver, and no one is reporting on it correctly. This took a great deal of investigative journalism. I know an art form long since passed, but not at Restricted Republic. You saw some of the headlines. American military news is China building a huge spy complex in the U.S., all relating to this Chinese company. Purchase of farmland in North Dakota, raising national security concerns in Washington, but they're not telling you the entire story because after a great deal of digging, all about this purchase will show you the proximity to the Grand Forks Air Force Base. That's what they're declaring is the national security threat, but it is so much larger than that. It's much closer to the 319th Reconnaissance Wing and something they have been working on than anyone's talking about. They house out of the Grand Forks Air Force Military Base. Some of the headlines read things like this. Some of the most sensitive elements of Grand Forks exist with digital uplinks and downlinks, inherent with unmanned air systems and their interaction with space-based assets. But as we've always come to expect, you're never told the entire story. You're distracted many times, and not that this is good in any way. At the same time, we should have called this Chinagate. Gates firm Red River Trust has purchased $13.5 million worth of land in North Dakota. But again, a distraction. In the same proximity to the Grand Forks Air Force Base, it has a lot more to do with this graphic than anyone's talking about. The 319th Reconnaissance Wing, a special project they've been working on. And when you find out what it is, it will put into very clear focus exactly where the concern about the Chinese purchase of that farmland should be. It is a direct link to something that is absolutely unbelievable, but with the timing of world events, would make a very horrific sense. And I'm about to present that to you here. But before we get there, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I certainly hope you will. Lisa will put a link just above. Also, make sure you subscribe to Lisa's channel here. And as a means of supporting us so we can continue to bring you this absolutely critical information around us. But now let's get back to this broadcast.
In America's heartland, over a 300-acre plot of farmland recently bought by a U.S. company that happens to have some ties to China. The company says it wants to build a corn milling plant.
Well, I guess that's the company, MSM Line, but when you truly do this job for a living, you dig much deeper. You don't accept those facts. And I'm going to show you why you can never just accept facts at face value. This story is so much more sinister than that. The group's name who performed that purchase is Fufeng Group, selects Grand Forks as U.S. manufacturing site. In the article, it states, the group has chosen Grand Forks, North Dakota for its first U.S.-based manufacturing facility. The company is a global leader in biofermentation, manufacturing products that serve animal nutrition, food and beverage, pharmaceutical, health and wellness, oil and gas, and other industries. And I'm going to show you the tie to James Cameron here also. So now we have China, we have Gates, we have Cameron. But we dug deeper than that. They conducted an extensive nationwide search for a suitable location that could support the project, with 25 sites ultimately being submitted by local governments for consideration. This one just so happens to be very near an Air Force base, that Grand Forks Air Force Base we discuss. The site chosen is approximately 370 acres in Grand Forks Agribusiness Park. The facility is expected to initially require 25 million bushels of corn annually. This site, what I did is dug a little deeper, made sure we compared this site to where it's located on good old Google Maps. But now the part that the media is reporting on is its proximity to Grand Forks Air Force Base. So through a simple search, and as we zoom out, you'll see 22 minutes, 16.6 miles. And many calling that into question. Why so close? That is a matter of national security. Oh, more so than anyone is telling you. So we'll go forward. That Grand Forks Air Force Base, who houses the 319th Reconnaissance Wing. But what they're doing is critical to the story. What they just were awarded, what they just won, the technology that they are working on is where this story should have always focused, but it didn't, of course. No, security concerns grow over Chinese project near U.S. Air Force Base.
But an Air Force major composed an alarming memo in April, obtained by CNBC, laying out what he believes to be the intelligence threat. He wrote, "Some of the most sensitive elements of Grand Forks exist with the digital uplinks and downlinks inherent with unmanned air systems and their interaction with space-based assets."
What does he know that the rest of the world doesn't? I'm going to show you what he knows. There's a very legitimate reason he put that out there the way he did. Again, trying to maintain his security clearance, obviously. Is China building a huge spy complex in the U.S.? Oh, in many ways. That statement couldn't be more accurate. But what they're spying on is the entire basis of this story. Senator Kevin Cramer, Republican out of North Dakota, also spoke out against the project. I think we grossly underappreciate how effective they are at collecting information, talking about China, of course, using it in nefarious ways. And so, yeah, I'd just as soon not have the Chinese Communist Party doing business in my backyard, which would seem to be a very easy statement to go ahead and consume and deploy, but we don't here. Of course we don't. The company's COO, Eric Chucharash, who is really where all this information that we went ahead and dug into stemmed from. Not from him directly, a simple search of his history. We're under the U.S. laws. I'm an American citizen. I grew up my whole life here, and I'm not going to be doing any type of espionage activities or be associated with a company that does. That's what he states. So that, of course, forced me to start digging to see what his background was, how close to the Chinese party has he worked with, how close to Chinese-backed companies has he worked with, and lo and behold, he's got quite a long history of it. You see his current position up on top, the same company that just bought that farmland. Go down lower, and you see Ingredion Incorporated, a 20-year history. By the way, this was the company, is the company, a company owned by Ingredion China Limited and Ingredion Shandong Limited. Quite a long history dealing with Chinese companies. Not saying that's right or wrong, until you dig into the facts. Ingredion acquired Verdian Foods. You remember the story? I know a lot of you do. This was James Cameron's company that he sold to the Chinese, Ingredion, for $140 million drive to create vegan protein. Don't care about that. I truly don't. No, I want the national security implications. I want to knock something out of the way, though. I don't want you being misdirected by the media. Yes, it's not good that Gates goes ahead and buys more farmland. We know the history. We know why this is bad. We know how he wants to change our food supply. We know how he's such a climate activist. Bill Gates wins legal approval to buy a huge swath of North Dakota, worth $13.5 million after outcry by the community. Community loses ultimately. In a curious move, the Campbell family in February filed a partnership name certificate with the North Dakota Secretary of State, naming their farming operations the Red River Trust, the same name as Gates' firm. And so they get all the so-called conspiracy theorists riled up with this. Again, rightfully so. I'm not saying they shouldn't be. I'm just saying focus on where your focus needs to be. And I'm going to put it squarely there. You're going to find out something that nobody's even touched. Here's a letter from the Office of the Attorney General going ahead and saying bad Gates, but ultimately approving it. So he got the farmland. This farmland, which many are saying, ultimately is as close as the Chinese acquisition purchase to the same Air Force base. I'll zoom out to show you. Sorry, with all the hotel ads coming up there. 34.5 miles north. Oh, we got a conspiracy. Beware the distractions. The controversy over Bill Gates becoming the largest private farmland owner in the U.S., this is the substance of this story. This is the problem with this story. But let's not commingle the two. Land owned by Bill Gates, by state, now the largest private farmland owner in the United States. But let's get back to our core story. What they didn't tell you. The location of the land close to the base is particularly convenient for monitoring air traffic flows in and out of the base. Among other security-related concerns, Hawkeye on USAF base, China firm buys land in North Dakota, close to critical U.S. drone facility. Oh, we're getting closer now. Thank you for focusing on the drones. Thank you for focusing on you didn't focus on what they're going to do with those drones, but we did. U.S. warnings have abound about China and how it affects our economic security, our food supply. House committee votes to block China and others from U.S. farmland buys. This should have already been done a long time ago. Why would anyone ever allow China to buy our farmland? But it's been ongoing for a long time. Subcommittee comes out, says we're going to go ahead and reduce funding, not make it so easy for foreign holdings of U.S. agricultural land, but that will do little to diminish it. Proportion of foreign held agriculture land to all privately held agricultural land in the U.S. You see there how much of a foothold they've already gained. U.S. government doing little to stop it. But now the details of what they haven't told you. All surrounding the 319th Reconnaissance Wing at Grand Forks Air Force Base, right next to the land that was just purchased by the China company. So I'll tell you what the 319th Reconnaissance Wing does. Communication professionals with the 319th Communications Squadron maintain one of two high-frequency global communication systems in the Air Force. First cause for concern. Offering 24 global continuity for command and control in support of the Department of Defense, executive branch of the United States government, and Department of Homeland Security. So why would you put any Chinese company near that? Should be the first question. It gets worse. Additionally, the Wing's innovative enhanced use leasing initiative provide access to unmanned aerial partnerships with community and industry professionals. Oh, getting closer to the truth now. The 319th Mission Support Group was the Wing's largest and most diverse group, comprised of more than 1,300 airmen and civilian personnel. The 319 MSG encompasses 7 squadrons that provide logistics, civil engineering, contracting, communications, security, airfield operations, and force support. Stop there. Force support and logistics. So, a little bit more digging was required. The 319th Air Refueling Wing supports global contingency and conventional operations in a single integrated operational plan. It also provides support for an air mobility command, major weapon systems, and supports a wide range of conventional and nuclear plans. On top of, the wing also provides infrastructure support for an Air Force Space Command group equipped with Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles. Folks, this is a badass base. It's controlling a lot of power, a lot of firepower, a lot of reconnaissance power, a lot of technological power, and we allowed the Chinese to buy property right next to it. Don't worry, I'm going to get specific for you. Going virtual with AMXS New Innovations. This is on the Grand Forks Air Force Base website itself. Some would just pass it by, another government program, whoop-de-doo. Except that's where the impact comes. Other communities across the Air Force are adopting similar innovative solutions, and we in AMXS were ripe to adopt these next-generation capabilities as we pivot to the future. This VR equipment, this reconnaissance, these unmanned aerial drones. What are these innovative solutions, and what is AMXS, and how does it relate to Project Mercury? Well, it appears the base has participated in a project called Project Mercury. When you go down in the website, you'll find some very peculiar, innovative causes. One of which, down at the very bottom, is Arctic Fire. The second is Pacific Prime. The third, Project Arborist. So after some deeper exploration, we found out what Arctic fire is and found out not relevant to what we believe this story is actually about. And then we stumbled into Pacific Prime. Our innovation showcase winner for cohort 4, Team Pacific Prime, asks how we can deliver high priority logistics items in a contested environment with a low risk of attrition. Award winners. Who are the award winners, I wonder? I'm going to show you part of the project, and then I'll show you who the award winners were and what they're doing with this technology.
Our ability to supply contested operations in the region is in jeopardy.
You saw that, right? Within the presentation, deliver supplies to the Pacific Theater, and the graphic shown was China and Taiwan. And how do we get supplies to the front line with a limited amount of attrition, and how does this apply to the 319th Reconnaissance Division? To give you another few hints.
With our long-range autonomous solution, the tyranny of distance is over. Low-cost, attritable assets are no longer for close air support and ISR only.
Well, they just gave it away, didn't they? Unmanned aerial drone reconnaissance support and delivery methods to get to the front line in the theater of China and Taiwan, and not once did they show that, but twice they showed that. There you see, Taiwan circled, China circled, North Korea, South Korea circled. Folks, it's there. You just have to dig for the information. This AMXS new innovation won by Grand Forks Air Force Base, next to which China just purchased a huge swath of North Dakota farmland, now having the ability, according to the security community, to monitor what's going on out of that base when it is directly related to a potential wartime theater. So the Chinese on U.S. soil just made a monumental wartime maneuver, and the mainstream media failed to report it to you, at least in regards to what the direct connection very well could be. My friends, that is what true investigative journalism looks like. Hope you appreciate it. Hope you appreciate the channel. Hope you'll subscribe to my channel. Hope you'll subscribe to Lisa's channel. Also, I need you to check out our sponsor at noblegoldinvestments.com. A long-time supporter of Lisa's, really has helped to keep her broadcast going. Amazing company, and right now with every qualified gold and silver-backed IRA account qualified, remember that, you get a very special gift. You get the gift of this gold coin. Security you can hold. Security I can hold. Show you. It really does exist. noblegoldinvestments.com. Get over there as soon as you can, because isn't independence the most important thing we should all be thinking about right now? America's independence, and how our U.S. government has continued to find ways to assure that that independence is decimated. And this purchase by the Chinese company of the Nebraska farmland is the quintessential example of how the real story is usually far larger than they ever let you know. I love you all. Can't thank you enough for being here today. Again, enjoy your Independence Day weekend. We love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight, signing out.